Okay, this case came on the heels of, or more accurately, preceded the Dan Talbot murder case by 3 days, because you had Michael Picardi and Derek Lodie involved in another violent episode 3 days before it went down in a very similar fashion out there at the high school where Revere police officer Dan Talbot lost his life. Now, at the close of that trial, Dan Conley and his sidekick Jake Wark refused to answer my question because I didn't have a NENPA press pass on me. The judge had already credentialed me to run 35 videos of the trial. So instead we had Jake Wark acting like a damn hyena out there. It's ridiculous.
Are you a credentialed member of the press?
I'm a member of the press.
Show me your credentials.
How was it the murders who got on?
Show me your
How was it the murders who got on?
Show me your credentials.
I don't have to. Show your credentials.
Not a member. Okay, not a member, a credentialed member of the press.
You know what? I'll get that for you. I mean, what?
You know something? I'll talk to anybody.
You know what? No, you don't. You can be as rude as you want to be, and I'll get it right.
Your Honor, had this matter gone to trial, the Commonwealth would have produced evidence of the following: that on September 26th of 2007, 3 young men by the last names of Blundell, Bastian, and Garbarino were walking in the area of Coolidge Street in Revere. As they were walking, they were approached by the defendant, Mr. Lodie. There was a short verbal exchange going on between the members of the group. And at one point, Mr. Lodie physically lunged at Mr. Blundell. Mr. Blundell is the physically smallest of the 3 men. Mr. Garbarino, who is significantly larger, stepped in to defend his friend and engaged with the defendant. Mr. Bastian, who was a couple steps behind Mr. Garbarino and Mr. Blundell, caught up moments later and also attempted to defend his friends. As I said, there was a physical altercation between those 3 men, and at one point, Mr. Lodie turned and ran into the housing development. Seconds later, Mr. Garbarino realized that he had been stabbed a total of 3 times in his torso or chest area. Mr. Bastian had a sizable slice on his hand near his thumb. Witnesses nearby called 911 and assisted Mr. Garbarino in getting to the ambulance on a nearby street when it arrived a short time later. When the police responded, another individual had some conversation with the police, which is subject to a separate indictment. I won't get into that at this juncture unless you want me to, Your Honor.
Not necessary.
Very well. Then in the meantime, while the ambulance and police personnel were attending to the individuals that were involved, or victims of this particular case, Mr. Lodie made his way to a mutual friend's house where people observed him and heard statements that he made with regards to the incident. Those are essentially the facts of this case, Your Honor.
As charges, aggravated assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon. That's 2, assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon. And 3, assault. Correct answer. Solemnly swear that you make true answers to such questions put to you by the court in the matter now hearing, so help you God.
Let me just. This 001 is in fact aggravated assault and battery.
Yes.
Could I clarify Mr. Lodie's attorney identify himself or not?
J.W. Carney, Jr. Your Honor.
Is this a district attorney representing the Commonwealth?
Yes. Amy Galatis for the Commonwealth.
Lodie, and your age? 20. Where were you born, sir? Malden. My name is Judge John Bradsley, and I have to ask you some questions to be sure you're offered to plead guilty to 3 indictments as your own free and voluntary decision. If I go too fast or you don't understand the question, will you stop me, please? If you need to talk to Mr. Carney at any time for legal help, will you stop me, please? Yes. Have you had any drugs or alcohol today? Do you have any mental illness that you know? Have you taken any pills or medications? Mr. Carney, have you raised any issues of Mr. Lodie's competence or rationality or his ability to converse intelligently with you in the States?
No, Your Honor.
I understand, Mr. Lodie, you're offering to plead guilty to 3 indictments. They charge aggravated assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon, assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon, and assault. Those are the 3 indictments you wish to plead guilty to.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, these indictments have been discussed with you by your attorney.
Yes, Your Honor.
Has he explained the law, the legal elements of these indictments?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Politis, should this plea be accepted by the court, are there any charge reductions or charge concessions planned?
Yes, Your Honor, with regards to count, I believe this count 4 that charges an armed assault with intent to murder. Upon the successful completion of the plea, the Commonwealth will move to dismiss that charge.
Mr. Carney, is that your understanding of the charge concession?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Lodie, are you aware that if you continue with your guilty plea, which is up to you, but if you do continue to plead guilty, one of these indictments will be dropped and dismissed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then, Ms. Golitis and Mr. Carney, are there different recommendations about his sentence?
Yes.
Could I have yours, please, for the record?
Yes, Your Honor, the Commonwealth's recommendation that Mr. Lodie be sentenced to 4 to 6 years, committed to state prison, and that sentence will run from and after the sentence he is currently serving.
Could you tell me the amount of sentence he's now serving, as best you know it?
My understanding is that Mr. Lodie is currently serving an 8-year to 12-year sentence in state prison.
Mr. Carney, do you have a different recommendation about his sentence?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Yours, please.
That the sentence recommended by the government be run concurrently with the sentence that Mr. Lodie is presently serving.
Okay. Is it fair to say that he is currently serving an 8 to 12?
Yes, Your Honor.
And was this plea discussed with another judge?
Yes, it was, Your Honor.
Was the recommendation of the other judge for the from and after or the concurrent?
She indicated on the record that were she able to accept the guilty pleas that day, she would have imposed a 4 to 6 year sentence concurrent with the sentence now serving.
Is that
That
fair?
justice was Justice Carroll.
Is that a fair statement of thinking?
Yes.
Mr. Lodie, you may be aware that another judge did conference your case and had certain thoughts about your sentence. And are you aware of that? Now, I've recently completed a conference myself with your attorney and with the prosecutor, listened to all of their recommendations, looked at your record, looked at the facts of the case, and I'm prepared to give you the same sentence as the other judge was prepared to do, although she couldn't finish it up because of her schedule. So you will be sentenced, again, if you continue your guilty plea, it's entirely up to you, but if you go ahead with it, I will give you the 4 to 6 years in state prison concurrent. Do you have questions that you would like to ask the Assistant District Attorney?
No, thank you, Your
I
Honor.
wish to make a statement, a factual presentation that she just completed.
No, I don't, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Lodie, having heard these facts, do you agree that on September 23rd, 2007, you did assault and beat Bradley Garbarino with a knife and caused him serious bodily injury? Yes, Your Honor. Do you further agree that on September 23rd, 2007, you committed an assault battery on Jean Bastien, and you did that with a knife?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you further agree that on September 23rd, 2007, you did assault Richard Blundell? Having told me that you did in fact commit all 3 of these crimes, you know the rights you're giving up about the jury trial. You know exactly what your sentence will be. Do you still wish to plead guilty? Who made that decision? Anybody pressure you? Make threats or twist your arm? Do you think you're making this guilty plea freely or under pressure and duress? Have you talked it over with your attorney? Has he explained to you all of your choices and options? Do you think he's been helpful to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know, sir, that if you are not a U.S. citizen, if you're lying to me about being born in Malta, if you're not a U.S. citizen, this guilty plea would automatically, forever, cause you to be deported?
Yes, Your Honor.
You know that if you're not a U.S. citizen, this guilty plea would automatically, forever prevent you from being allowed back into the United States?
Yes, Your Honor.
prevent you from forever becoming a naturalized U.S. citizen? I'm holding up a piece of paper. It's a form that tells all the rights you give up when you plead guilty, and on the back, is that your signature?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you sign this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Below that, Mr. Carney, is that your signature?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Did you go over this with your client?
I did, Your Honor.
Do you think he...
Yes, I did.
And Mr. Lodie, I assume because you're already serving a sentence, you've given the required DNA sample to the government. I assume he gave it on the first sentence. But I have to advise you that if you've never given a DNA sample, you will have to give one.
I have one.
Yeah. Since it involves a bugle swab or saliva from you, I would assume he gave it to the first year.
He's aware that is a possibility as a result of this.
So you're aware a DNA sample may well be taken from you. Do you, at the end of our conversation, have any last-minute hesitation or reservations about pleading guilty? Ms. Miletus, well, I have a couple of questions, Mr. Carney, then I want to ask about victim participation. Mr. Carney, did you go over with your client all of his choices and options?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
And did you describe to him the legal elements of these indictments?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Did you have any difficulty communicating with him?
None whatsoever.
Do you believe there's a factual basis for this verdict?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
And do you believe that today he's pleading knowingly, willingly, intelligently, and voluntarily?
I do, Your Honor.
Then, Ms. Gladys, as you know, the victim rights statute in Massachusetts, being a strong statute, will allow each of these three men to speak to the court, either in person or through you, about the impact of these crimes on their lives.
Yes, Your Honor, we've had an opportunity to speak with each of the three men. They were made aware of what the Commonwealth's recommendation was, what counsel's recommendation was, as well as what Judge Ball indicated she would do had the defendant pled guilty in front of her. They were made aware of that, as I said. None of the three wished to be present today, and none of the three wished to be heard by the court.
And do you wish to speak for them in any way?
No, Your Honor.
Speak on your recommendation.
I do, Your Honor. Your Honor, the recommendation by the Commonwealth is based in a couple of factors. The first being the facts of this particular case. The facts of this particular case indicate that Mr. Lodie approached these men. It wasn't the reverse. I would note as well that the sentencing guidelines, what the Commonwealth was recommending, would comport generally with the sentencing guidelines. I'd also note that in this particular case, as I mentioned, the Commonwealth was aware of Mr. Lodie's case where he's currently serving a sentence. That particular case is not related to this case in any way. I don't have anything further to say, though. Thank you.
Mr. Carney, did you want to speak on behalf of your client and your recommendation?
I make it my practice to try to inform my client about all of his options, including my willingness at any time to go to trial. But I also try to educate him about what his options are, the pros and cons of each option. And once I feel the client understands everything, I completely leave it up to the client to make the decision. That's the process I follow here. I find my client to be intelligent, streetwise, knowledgeable about the criminal justice system based on his recent experiences,